Yup freaks, what's up? It's me back at you with another vid. Now this vid will be a lot different from all my vids. Most of my vids are like upbeat or ranty. Yeah, not this one. This is gonna be more of a somber video as it's quite significant for me personally and it's quite like, you know, you know. So today on the calendar it's showing May 9th. Uh and May 9th is very significant for me because on May 9th, 1987, 32 years ago, in the late morning hours, Lot Flight 5055 crashed in the Kabate Woods in Warsaw, killing all 183 people on board. Now, this flight is quite significant for me. It's because I have a personal connection to it. But will need to start with some of we will need to start with some sort of a backstory to all of this. So it's a bit of a story time, but it's more somber, not like almost. So yeah, so let's get right into this. So back in the 80s, up from I want to say the 40s/50s, right up to the 1980s, 1989, Poland was under communist rule, and as you guys know, my ma is Polish. My ma's side of the family is Polish. And yeah, and basically you couldn't do a lot of things back then. Like you couldn't leave the country legally, so if you wanted to leave, you have to get a special permission. And luckily, my family, my nanny and stuff, did get a special like slip permission thing from the like state and stuff to go abroad, like to the US and stuff. So they, when my mom was little, she took a lot of like holidays outside, and she only went to the US. I want to say like twice or three times or something like that. And in 1985, she flew on IL 62M with the tail numbers SP dash LBG. Now this plane is the one that ended up crashing 3 years later. But so she flew on it. But that's not it. She flew on some other Soviet made planes, and that was actually the flight that, or it might have been 1986. I don't even know. So I think it actually was 1986. That's besides the point. I have to go through old records and flight tickets. And on that flight, it was to New York. She got to go into the cockpit, and she got to talk. She got chatting with the captain of it, Captain Zygmunt Pawlacek. I think That's how you say it. Yeah, and that was the same exact captain on the same exact plane that died 2 or a year later. I'm not sure now, but again I have to go through records, and I don't have them. They're in my nanny's attic over in Poland. So skip over to 1987, May 9th, early morning. My nanny's preparing out for a flight to New York because she has a friend there that she hasn't seen in a long time because she escaped communist Poland and moved to New York. So she decided to visit her because she really misses her. They went to the same class together. They had loads of sleepovers. They were besties back in the day. And so she decided she's gonna, visit her in the US. So she booked her flight tickets long in advance because you'd have to, because back then flight tickets cost 24,000 zloty, which isn't actual 24,000 zloty. It'd be different. It'd be about 400 zloty in today's money. But like back then, like a stack of bread that cost 1,000 zloty, which now equals to about 2 zloty. Yeah, it was a very confusing time for everyone. So she bought her tickets, not booked. We didn't have internet back then. Bought her tickets at an actual like travel agent counter thing because you still had to do that back then. And on the morning, she was preparing out for the flight, so they kissed everyone goodbye. The neighbors, it was a Saturday, so my ma had a day off school, and the neighbors came in to watch because my ma has four siblings, so obviously they couldn't stay without care. So she came in to watch them while my granddad was driving my grandmother to the airport in it's a little car. I don't exactly know what it's called. I think it's called a Maluch, something like that. It's the only car that was available. You were prestigious in Poland back then if you could afford Maluch. I will show you a picture of it now through my video shop editing skills. Be cute, huh? Anyway, so I need to adjust the camera a bit because yeah. So he was driving her to the airport, and about like I want to say they were in the vicinity of Warsaw already, getting close to the airport, and the plane. My nanny was already running a bit late, but you know she would have made it anyway. And and then the worst possible thing, well, the best possible thing, but back then before no one knew what was about to happen. So the fucking car breaks down. The little Maluch car, and it's called a Maluch. It breaks down in the middle of the road. My granddad can't start it for the love of God, he can't start. He can't start the car. It's broken down. Fuck. What are we gonna do now? He tries to fix the car. There's no taxi. Well, there is taxis back then, obviously, but not as widely available, especially in Warsaw as now or any other big city. That was the case in communist countries. Like public transportation wasn't really that big of a thing. But my nanny, bear in mind, they didn't have a mobile phone back then, so she couldn't just flip out her phone like her iPhone X or Samsung Galaxy A6 and tap on fucking my taxi app and order a taxi to the airport. Like she couldn't do that. Like, and she bear in mind she still had to go through customs and check in her luggage, so it was looking pretty bad for her. The car breaks down. There's no hope of fixing it. The fucking thing like overheated and like they broke, and it would take like a couple of days to repair it. And like obviously like my dad like my dad granddad couldn't call a mechanic or anything. Like he is kind of like a he could do it, but he didn't have the tools or anything. So he would have had to like drive with someone, but he couldn't leave my nanny there. So like they had to like they were on the side of the road and just waiting there like for transport to see if some good Samaritan stopped to help. Eventually they did, but at that point it was too late. Someone offered to drive my nanny to the airport. So like she tried in the last ditch attempt because someone stopped and they were like, "Do you want help?" And my granddad was like, "No, like yeah, we need help, but like I'll get that later." Like my wife is like she hasn't seen her friend living in the US for like 20 years. Like really needs to get to the airport to catch the flight. Like could you please drive her? So they said of course, like sure. Back then it wasn't like I don't think trafficking was that much of a problem, especially in Poland. Like back then people actually had respect for each other. So they drove her to the airport, straight up to the gates. She ran into that fucking terminal to the check-in desk, but they told her it was too late. They've closed boarding. So she couldn't do it. They said the only other option was to wait till the afternoon for the flight to Chicago and to connect through Chicago and fly to New York. So she decided she was going to do that, and they let her through, like through customs, because they booked her onto the Chicago flight. So she was sitting in the waiting room, and then everything's going normal. The plane, the flight 5055, the one she was supposed to be on, takes off, and then like she doesn't know, no one at the airport, no, except the air traffic control tower, but the engine of the IL-62 I'll demonstrate this because I can't explain it like that. So this is a model of an IL-62M aircraft, and so basically the plane was climbing to its cruising altitude, and the air traffic controllers told the pilots to go up in altitude because there was some military training going on, and they didn't want a collision. Obviously, well, shit, nothing happened from that anyway. Nothing transpired. So they said to raise the altitude. So they had to, of course, like get the power up in the engines. So the engines went to full thrust, like takeoff thrust, and then the engine back then, Lot had a horrendous engine maintenance and general policy. I'll get to that in a sec. Yeah, I mean like later in this video. So they're climbing. The engines are full thrust, and then engine number 2, which is here, explodes, destroys engine number 1. This one completely shuts it off, and then parts of it, which are like really hot at this point, like burning hot because they were just like after exploding and spinning at a really high speed. So they go into. Let me show you. Hold on. This is engine number 2. They go into the baggage hold here and get stuck in the goddamn baggage hold and start a fire. Now at the time they didn't notice until about 5 minutes before the crash. So they continue flying on. They turn around. Now at this point, no one but the controllers know that this is. My nanny is still sitting thinking that she just got Mr. fucking flying out. Her entire day is screwed. She called my granddad from a payphone and stuff. My granddad at this point is at some sort of a mechanics because they ended up calling someone like from a payphone as well, like later. So he's at a mechanics in Warsaw, and she's calling him out to say that she missed her flight and stuff. And then the plane starts experiencing more problems. A fire in that no one to this day they don't know what caused this. Something explodes in the baggage hold, and that was the final blow. It completely destroyed the electronics and stuff. The only thing that was keeping it up was a trimmer, but that was soon to fail as well. So the chances of them getting back to the airport are becoming more nil and nil as time goes on. It's truly horrendous. This happened 32 years ago, exactly today. Uh, so they're approaching the airport. They can't. They bear in mind the landing gear can't retract because that the systems for that are they fell apart basically. The flaps don't work, so they're descending at an extremely high speed of about 500 kilometers per hour. Now there was no chance. They did actually forgot to mention this. They did consider diverting to Modlin Airport because it was closer, but the runway wasn't long enough, and Warsaw Airport, the main one, was better prepared. So they decided to continue back to Warsaw, and the flaps couldn't deploy, the landing gear couldn't deploy. They're heading at an extremely high speed. So at this point, it was the pilots already knew they weren't going to make it, but they tried anyway, which respect honestly to them. And they're like descending. Apparently, like you could see the plane because like there was a plume of smoke behind it from the baggage hold, and my nanny said when I asked her about it, she said she couldn't remember seeing any smoke because I think at the time she was in a shop buying like water or something. I don't even remember that clearly, but she didn't see it anyway. And yeah, so the plane is descending, and like the trimmer fails, and the plane starts hold on. So the trimmer, which is this thing in the tail, that was basically the only thing keeping them going. This fails, and the plane starts nosediving towards the earth. And that at that point, they knew they weren't going to make it. So with the final kind of power that the pilot had, he steered the plane onto its right wing. I don't know how he managed to, but he did because the flight course showed it on the black boxes. And the plane, if he hadn't done that, the plane would have ended up crashing into apartments, and probably upwards of 1,000 people would have died. But he managed to steer it into the Kabate Woods, which meant only the people on the actual plane died, which is still unfortunate, but that was the better outcome of any of the outcomes that could have happened, I think. And yeah, so and that's basically, and then the airport like erupts, like everyone, like the employees are like they find out that the New York flight has crashed like right outside the airport because the Kabate Woods is they were only 44 seconds away from the runway, which they wouldn't have made it anyway, I don't think, but it is pretty unfortunate. And like my nanny, like everyone in the waiting room notices, like waiting for other flights, notices that there's chaos at the airport, and then they find out that the plane has crashed, and then my nanny's heart just sank. She dropped her luggage, she dropped her everything. She said to me, fell on her knees and started crying. She started bawling, praying, like that kind of thing. And the airport employees had to help her up and stuff, and like she was crying, called my grandfather. Obviously my grandfather knew that she wasn't on the plane because she had called her up, but like the neighbor that was taking care of my nanny's kids, like my mom and her sisters and her 1-year-old brother. And yeah, so she thinks, because they were good friends as well, she thinks that she was on that plane. So she calls her up, like, because my grandparents had it was a really old shy phone, it's still up in the attic somewhere. She calls her on it, like, the phone number, and, like, the payphone, like, rings, because payphones, like, they rang. And she takes the payphone, and it was like, hello, like, someone took the payphone, I mean, I'm lost. An airport employee took the payphone, and they're like, who is this? And they're like, can I please speak to this person? Blah 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 blah. And like, is she still here? And they called. Is there anyone here called, blank? I won't say my nanny's name. And then she came over to the phone, and they were crying together, just like so in like joy that she hadn't died because she didn't make it for that plane, which is really, it's I don't even know what would have transpired if she made it for that plane if the car hadn't broken down. But yeah, so that is the story. That's my connection to lot 5055. Uh, and yeah, every time I get on a plane now, I think about that flight, I think about those people. And I vow to myself that I will never fly on an airplane on the 9th of May. Because I just don't feel like it's good. Because, I don't know why, I just don't want to. It just puts me off flying. Same with like September 11th, I don't think I would have ever. I don't think I'll ever fly on on September 11th, because who does that? Uh, but anyway, so it's a really unfortunate and tragic story, but turned out good for my family. I mean, still unfortunate and stuff. And like from that day on, my nanny attends mass every single day on 9th May. Like she goes to church at least to pray for the deceased. Now, whether God is real or not, that's up for debate. I'm not a huge believer, but like if that's what she feels she needs to do, then good for her, I guess. And it's really quite emotional because she does like really care, and like she could have been one of them. Like there was 183 people died, 185 were meant to die because someone else missed it as well, and she missed it as well. So she's really thankful that she missed it, and honestly, I can't blame her. But now I want to get on to something. So yeah, my nanny nearly died in a plane crash. Story time. Yeah, but now I want to get on to something else. These planes are extremely badly designed, I want to say. Because if one of the engines explodes, then the rest of the plane is fucked. Then, but especially, Polish Airlines engine maintenance was not the best. They literally, when they examined the engine pieces, there was like pieces missing. Like obviously they were torn to shreds. Like by the way, none of the bodies on that plane were in like full. They are like dismembered and stuff, and only 121 bodies out of 183 victims were identified. So just shows you. You can go look at pictures. I'm actually gonna throw in some pictures of the crash at the end. Uh, yeah. So Lot's Polish engine maintenance was horrendous at the time. They saved money because every time that they sent it to Illusion to fix maintain the engines, they had to pay them, and of course, well, they couldn't really afford it, so they skipped on maintenance. They fucked the maintenance up like completely, and the engines, out of like let's say three engines were grand and one was in danger. It was basically experts described the engine of my nanny's flight as a ticking bomb waiting to explode. Now, 7 years earlier, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. Another IL-62M 7 years earlier crashed due to the exact same reason on the opposite side of the airport of the Kabate Woods, 2 kilometers away from where 5055 crashed, for the exact same reason. The famous singer Anya Yontar died in that flight. So yeah, so two planes crashed, two IL-62Ms crashed due to the same issue. Now, after the second crash, they obviously made some improvements, but still, they retired the IL-62M they retired it. The last one was sold to Ukraine in 1992, and they were replaced by Boeing 767s, and was probably for the better. So, and it's really sad that over 200 people had to die because an airline just wanted to save money. Like, it's really sad. And my nanny could have died from it. Like anyone else could have died from it that traveled on those planes. The engines were flawed from the very for the longest time. My mom could have died when she was traveling like with her family to the US that one time on that plane. So yeah, uh, quite a sad story. I know this video is not as upbeat, but I will show you some pictures of the crash after this. But I want to thank you guys for watching. Rest in peace to all the victims who died 32 years ago. You will be remembered forever. And yeah, so I hope you guys join me for a more cheerful video next Thursday. So yes, thank you for watching. And if you're religious, maybe say a prayer for the people that died 32 years ago. Because if you're religious, if you're not religious, then of course, like I'm not saying say a prayer, but I don't think even I will because I'm not religious. But if you are, it'd be nice, to remember them. Anyway, so thank you for watching this vid, and bye.